שלום וברוכים הבאים לערוץ טוב. היום אני מאוד שמח לארח כאן את ידידי מניו ג'רזי, ארצות הברית, סט ברייטמן. Hello Seth, how are you?
Good afternoon. Good.
Good afternoon for me and good morning to you. But before we start, just a quick commercial. אתם מוזמנים להצטרף ל-130,000 המנויים של ערוץ טוב ויהיו חלק מהקהילה שלנו בלחיצה על כפתור ההרשמה והפעמון מתחת לנגן. Seth, okay, let's get down to business. Quick introduction to you. You have the Jewish, I would say, podcast, the Jew Function, which I had the privilege of being a guest several months ago. And I would like to get directly to the point. You live in New Jersey, America, and I really would like to start asking you, how's the experience these days to be a Jew in New York, New Jersey? How it is this experience in this stormy water of Momdani and in general what we see at the moment worldwide and also a lot in the States. So I'm really curious about your experience at this time of being an American Jew, because you're not Israeli, you're born and raised. So I'm really curious about that.
Yeah. My colleagues and friends here know that I know a lot of people in Israel. They ask me things like, why don't they just leave? Or, are they okay? And then I've been over there a few times in the last few years. I was there twice last year. And when you're there, if it's not a time that the rockets are falling, it's normal life. People are living. It's hard to explain that to somebody here. In the US, you have something a little bit similar. You can go through your day. You wake up in the morning, you have a coffee, you do a few stretches, you go to work, you come home, you have dinner with your family, and you might not notice anything. But if you open the New York Times, for example, the other day, you got three, I have it here. Pentagon sees growing espionage threat from Israel. Next headline, Israel strike kills 3 Lebanese soldiers the day after the ceasefire was signed. The third headline, infant killed as Israeli military fires on car in West Bank. You turn on the radio in the car. If anyone who listens to the radio, National Public Radio here, Israel kills this many people. Israel invades this bombs Beirut, etc. There's it's very hot under the collar. If you go out into the public square, if you're talking to people, if you're out in the city and not, doing your thing. For example, if you're in Israel, you can go about your life, and until the worst happens. But this thing is on our heads, on your heads all the time. And here it's the same thing. You can live as if you can find a place to live and get by, but until you're in uptown New York and Manhattan, Harlem or something, and you hear the call for prayer coming over the loudspeakers. Yeah, it's they have an expression that the frog doesn't feel that he's boiling if you turn up the heat slowly. That's kind of what's going on. It's you can feel something happening, but it's still at the point that you can live your life and as if nothing is happening, and that makes it a little bit scary right now.
I'm wondering, because we get a lot of information about New York at this time, about Seattle, about a lot of other places. But about Jersey, I'm not hearing a lot. And I know there is a big Muslim community in Jersey these days. Is that so, right?
There's a town called Paterson, New Jersey.
Paterson, yeah.
Yeah, so they call this the fourth holiest place to Palestinians. The mayor has declared it. Someone can look up Paterson, New Jersey, and see all the stats there. I think it's 20,000 Palestinians that live there. And why is that an issue? It's probably not an issue. You got a lot of places where there's Jews living, but um, the issue becomes, why does it have to be hostile? That's the issue. It's not a problem of people living anywhere, but when they have their parades, or when they do these exhibitions where they rename the street Palestinian Street or something like Palestine Street, there's this other feeling of, from the river to the sea, that also accompanies it. And that's an issue. Right over the river in New York City. The problem that well, obviously there's problems with Mamdani, but if the people who support him, I'm sorry, if the people who don't support him leave, and for example go to Florida or move somewhere else, so the only people that are left in the city are the people who support him. And so the issues that we're talking about now are, we have to now behave as if we have, eyes that can see into the future. That's the problem. We are so reactionary. Everybody reacts and lives so day to day that if you don't see what's coming down the road, um, what's happening now is just a seed that's starting to sprout.
Well, I think it's a little bit more than seed. Actually, I think the seed was planted 20, 30 years ago. I think now we're actually seeing the plant keep on growing. I have to do a quick commercial. Please don't go anywhere.
שמי מיכה קובי, שירתי בשב"כ כ-30 שנה, ממונה על יחידות החקירה, התמחיתי בכל מה שקשור לחמאס, וידעתי הרבה מאוד פרטים על מלחמת אוקטובר. בהרצאה שלי אני חושף פרטים רבים על המלחמה, על התנהגות ראש השב"כ ואחרים. יהיו שם פרטים מאוד מעניינים, ואני מזמין אתכם להגיע להרצאה למועדון הגולה בפתח תקווה. נתראה שם.
בלעדי לחברי מועדון היחידה, סדרת הרצאות עם מיטב המומחים בישראל בנושאים שמעסיקים את כולנו, קהילה, תוכן, עומק. להצטרפות למועדון היחידה ולרכישת כרטיסים להרצאה, לחצו על הקישור שמתחת לנגן.
לכל הפרטים לגבי ההרצאות, תראו את כל הפרטים בקישור מתחת לנגן. Seth, I'm back. Sorry for this interruption. Do you feel a difference between living in Jersey and living in New York? Because, listen, it's quite publicly something we see, that Jews are moving to Florida. Do you see the same move from Jersey to Florida, or you see it only from New York to Florida, for example?
Yeah, mostly. New York is such a huge population center, the city. Yeah, I think that people, but I don't know that it's. No, I don't. A lot of older Jews from New Jersey moved to Florida. That's just always been. That's before any problems like this. But I don't see an exodus yet. In fact, what I see now is Jews moving, buying property together. More religious Jews buying property together and moving to communities around Jersey. I don't see a huge. I personally don't see a huge exodus out of New Jersey like I do out of New York. There's but everywhere. I live in a university town. There's an Ivy League famous university right nearby, Princeton University. That's where Einstein was. A very famous university. There were those Hamas encampments, on the campus, a couple miles from my house, during this whole mess recently, when 30, 40, 50,000 Iranians were murdered recently. Nobody was out on campus. When a couple 100,000 Syrians were murdered, nobody was out on campus. There's an absolute obsession with Israel everywhere.
Yeah, there is an obsession in the media, definitely also an obsession about Israel, and I see it on American media. Look, I'm monitoring a lot of material that comes out, video reels from the States, and it seems like there's a lot of weekly attacks on Jews in public transport. I see it a lot in the subway, I see a lot of animosity coming from the African American community, which is always a painful subject for me, because I can't really sometimes understand it. And it's something that leads the news and leads social media, and but you don't see it or feel it on daily life, or how it comes to you personally.
Yeah, that's a problem. I live in this quiet university town, and I go into work every day and come back out. It's possible that I don't have to see it at all. There's other people where you can't avoid it. In New York, a bill just went to the governor's desk, I think, last week, saying that they're not going to call moms mothers, and they're not going to call dads fathers. They're going to call them like hora gestoni, like gestating parents. Right? They're removing hora gestioni.
So
like
you
a
mean the
gestating
progress,
parent.
the wokeism, the progress
Yeah,
movement.
right. So you can live your life, and why does that matter to me, right? If they don't call this person a mother and the father anymore, it's a gestating parent and a non-gestating parent. Does it change that I'm buying eggs? Does it change that I'm
No.
driving to work in the morning? Not really, but it deteriorates the foundation of a normal natural life. Freud has this concept that like a boy when he's in school, when he's a kid, and he kind of makes fun of the girl that he likes. So he acts with her, like in a bad way, but it's really because he likes her. I think Freud calls it like reaction formation or something like that. I think that there's this thing that there's this just full on attack towards what the Jew stands for, or what not every Jew. Obviously, there's we have Jews on, as you know very clearly over there. You have Jews on both sides, and they can be very hostile towards each other. But I think the world is pushing against all of these foundations of the Jew, foundations of the family. The Jews were the ones who brought world peace to the world. There was no such concept before the Jews, who
Or
brought
compassion. Or
"V'ahavta
compassion.
l'orecha
Compassion
kamocha,"
is
yeah,
a Jewish concept.
right. So, and also, here's another thing, Oded. We can see all this shit, all these things happening in the world, right? But Jews are not the people of quantity. Say you have 1,000 birds, and the thunder strikes. 1,000 birds will move at one time, and then lightning strikes, and 1,000 birds will move back. People, the masses of the people, are exactly the same way. Some shit comes on TikTok, and 1,000,000 people go like this, and then they say something on CNN here, and 1,000,000 people go like this. I don't think our work is to be obsessed with the quantity. If you look at the Jews, we're such a small group of people, but in quality, we affect everything. We affect media. We affect economy. We affect culture. And I think our focus needs to be on what we as Jews, and this is the problem that I see over here in America, and this is the problem probably also similarly in Israel, that the masses are going to constantly push, just like Rome, just like Greece, just like Persia, just like everywhere else. Society is going to develop how it's going to develop, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. This is like, the
Yeah.
early 1930s in the United States
Absolutely.
now.
It's going to get worse,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm
It's going to get
shouting
much
everywhere.
worse.
It's going to get much
Yeah,
worse
and our
until we're going to understand it. Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. And so we have to start understanding what's happening. There's a guy called Ray Dalio. He runs one of the biggest hedge funds in the world. He started doing research and started to see that there's these cycles. There's these 80-year economic cycles. There's also these bigger economic cycles. I think maybe 200 and something year economic cycles. So if you're living day to day, just checking the market every day and living your life, oh, now it's up, now it's down, now it's up, now it's down, now eggs cost more, now eggs cost less. You don't see what's going on. If you're a guy like Ray Dalio and you zoom out, you see, we're in a cycle. I don't care who the characters are. I don't care what the costumes of the character are. I don't care what country we're in. We have the same cycles that are economic cycles that are happening. Now, if you're a Jew, you have even more than Ray Dalio because you have 3,000 years of watching cycles happen. We have all the books that explain exactly what happens in these cycles. We have all the history that explains exactly what happens in all these cycles. And we now need to understand who we are and what's going on here. This is not that we can just put our head in the sand and think, oh, everything's going to be great in America. In 2 years, Trump won't be president anymore. So, that changes things for Jews. That changes things for Jews in America.
I want to grab this subject that you just mentioned. In Israel, there's a lot of talk. What's going to happen in 2 years when President Trump is going to step down? Because he will step down. And if we're going to go see the Democrat Party, which the Jews are regular voters of the Democratic Party for years, what's your prediction for the moment President Trump will step down? Is it going to be Rubio? Is it going to be Vance? Is it going to be the Democrats? Because if the Democrats going to be there, I'm scared. But I'm also scared of J.D. Vance. I'm really curious about your input about that.
I think so there's so many levels to being a Jew, right? On the one hand, we want the whole world to be one family. We want everyone to love each other. On the other hand, we have to have the most badass military, the best Mossad. We want everyone to love. But if you're going to kill us, I'm sorry, you're going to have to die, right? It's this constant balance of being a Jew.
Yeah, I just let me interrupt you quickly. Excuse me. I just try to stop with this term of love because I think this search and need of love it needs to stop because it doesn't lead us to anything positive. The only thing we're getting is the other way around. We're getting hate for this search of love. So we have to stand for ourselves and then we're going to get love. Don't you think so?
I think that as a Jew, we don't have the luxury of we have to balance opposites. That's just who we are. That's who the Jewish people are. I think this is what we bring. And that's our situation. If we can't get along with each other, Jews, I don't think we stand a chance. And I think this is what everything, if we go back, I grew up here in the United States. I thought Jews, you know who Woody Allen is? This actor, Woody Allen?
Of course I do know. Well, I'm not from
Mars,
right. So
I thought this is what Jews were. I grew up near New York City. I thought, Jews, we're just trying to live our life and a little bit funny, a little bit okay. And the world just keeps beating us up.
Yeah, clumsy, getting a slap here, slap there. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the world, we're just trying to live our life. And for some reason, the world keeps trying to kill us. Why? I don't know. That's just how it is. But when you start studying really what's happening, before the Romans entered into Jerusalem, they sat up on the hill and they watched us killing each other. The story of Hanukkah. I thought the Greeks just came to kill the Jews. I didn't know that there was a civil war. I didn't know that it was the religious Jews, the zealot Jews were fighting against the Hellenized Jews. I didn't know these kind of things. And it's the same story that we see now. It's that we Jews have to figure it out in our own family, between the Jews. And I think that the world will follow after us. And it's a problem. If we don't, we understand what happens. We saw what happened in less than 100 years ago. If there was no anti-Semitism, who knows, what would have been left of, if there were no Nazis, God forbid to even say something like this, but who knows what would have been left of the Jewish people if we would have all assimilated away, if we would have, if all of our culture just would have gone away. And so the world keeps putting this pressure on us. And so, on the one hand, of course, we have to fight against this pressure. But in a sense, Oded, we have to, we can't lose this fire of love somehow. Not to say that we should behave with everybody with love if they're trying to kill us. Of course not. Not to say that we should behave on the outside. Sometimes with your kids, you have to be strict, even though in your heart you love them. We have a role, and it's very scary what can happen in the United States if we miss this opportunity right now.
I must say, you are talking about the Hellenized Jews, the Mityavnim. It's a good point. In the end, they lost and disappeared, the Hellenized Jews, and it was much more a united society in that way. But I do agree with you, to be Or LaGoyim, we first need to get along with each other properly and to be united, and that will be an example for all the other nations how to follow. And I agree with you, we're going to have to lead in a moral way, in a lot of ways. We're going to have to lead the world, and we are a little bit, we are missing in that point. But just before, just not to lose this point, because I still really want to know, what is your input in 2 years from now regarding Trump departure of the White House? What's your feeling is going to be there? Tell all the anxiety of Israel, what's going to happen with when King Trump is going down?
There is such a vile hatred for Trump amongst the liberal Jews. Such a hatred, and it's if I was a psychologist, I'd be able to explain it very clearly. I think that it's a transference of, I want to be seen as good. Jews have this thing, I want to be seen as good. I want to be seen as righteous, and I'm going to transfer all of the negativity onto that person, and I'm going to point to him as bad. And people don't pay attention to what's happening on our college campuses. They don't pay attention to what's happening behind the scenes in the economy, behind the scenes in the government. Oded, I don't know.
I got to tell you, I got to tell you, because when I saw the demonstrations in the campuses since 2023, since 7th of October, what was very painful for me is to see the liberal American Jews there joining the Palestinians in demonstrations against Israel. I think you know what I'm saying. I'm sure you saw that. And a lot of people ask here, is all these Democrat liberal Jews who voted for Momdani, who think if they're going to join our aggressor, he's going to spare them. And all history showed that he won't. And it never works, you don't get love by surrendering and humiliating yourself in front of your aggressors. It just doesn't work. But, taking that and moving forward, I would like to know, what is your point of view of the future of American and Israelis, Jews, in the coming years in America? I'm really curious to have your input, because I'm sure you do. You're living there. I'm sure you're thinking about it.
For me, I'm thinking about it all the time. If we're not able to if Jews here are not able to have something that they can be proud of, I think it deteriorates more and more. I want to get to the answer to your question, but if you look at New York City, right? So it's very expensive to live. You used to you couldn't go out in New York without spending $20 in the past. Now you can barely go out without spending $100. You want to, just get something to eat, it's $50. You're with another person. I'm talking like, not something extravagant. It's so expensive to do anything in New York. To move, it's expensive in New York. So comes in a guy and he says, it's too expensive. If you think it's too expensive, vote for me. In that sense, he's right. It's too expensive for most people to live. And let's say the Republicans or the conservatives were not offering another solution. So somebody comes in and says this, it says, I'll give you buses for free. I'll give you groceries for free. I'll take away all your taxes. Of course, people are going to vote for that. We have in the United States right now, this image of Israel is an aggressor. This image of Israel is a genocider. Now, you and I understand this is not true, but most people, quote unquote, their rent is too high, right? They just feel that they open up the New York Times, Israel's bombing. They turn on the radio, Israel's bombing Lebanon, right? They have no ability to see the big picture. And let's go back to our own responsibility. Again, we're not offering, like in New York City, if some conservative offered some option to working people to have housing that works. Why does it have to be one extreme versus the other extreme? On the one hand, you have an apartment that costs $4,000 for a one bedroom, 4,000 US a month for a one bedroom apartment, 3,000 a month for a US apartment. Who can afford that? Right? You need to make $30,000 after taxes just to pay your rent. So this other guy's offering me a solution. In the United States, Israel's bombing, Israel's the aggressor. This is the message. And where from the pro-Israel voice, from our side, let's say, where are we offering some olive branch, some way to explain to the other Jews, some way to explain to the other side what's happening? And since we don't, and since NPR and since the New York Times and since CNN and since BBC are doing such a good job, unfortunately, most of our family, most of our fellow Jews who want to be seen as good people, as morally good people, they lose connection to. I know people who voted for Kamala Harris who say that they support Israel. Right? I know
Wow.
many people who voted for Kamala Harris who say they support Israel.
Wow,
So
that's a
you see what a
contradiction.
work, right? So
Yeah,
you see what a
yeah,
work we have to do,
yeah.
and also those Jews that were sitting on the college campuses, like they want to feel that they're morally good people. We have to give them that opportunity to feel that.
Yeah, but who they're trying to convince actually that they are good moral people? Who are they speaking
they're probably-
to that I need to help them to try to convince my aggressor that I'm a good guy? I'm starting to come to a point that I see that is pointless.
They're probably
As you mentioned.
screaming. They're probably silently screaming, "Please don't kill me!" While
That's it.
on the outside, right?
That's it.
Probably what they're doing.
Yeah, that's it. But I feel that as a proud Israeli, as somebody who feels that it doesn't need to do an apologetic hasbara, but actually the opposite way around, because I feel all this "don't hurt me" is just inviting more punches and more punches.
Mm-hmm.
And as you said, we are a very small percentage of the population of the world.
Tiny.
The major corporation of media are against us now, from CNN to BBC to CBS to everybody else, the New York Times. And how can I come out as the nice guy with all these forces around me, which is actually leading me to, I think that my prediction for the Jews of America will be that they're slowly going to move to Florida, and eventually they're not going to have a choice from Florida to Israel. So that's, unfortunately, our time is coming to an end. So I would like to ask you, do you agree with me? And when do we see Seth Brightman and his family here in Israel with us?
Well, you'll see me there. Yeah, you'll see me there soon, visiting friends and family, and it's very likely in the future, we will all be there. But this will. What is the purpose of the Jew? It's not just us running away from getting our asses kicked. We have to have a bigger mission, because all the Jews in the world are going to move to Israel, and then what? If we don't also solve this, if we don't spread what our message is, I don't think it gets better anywhere. So I think we need to put on our big boy pants. We need to understand the role we have in the world when it comes to music, when it comes to media. Imagine the stories, the movies. Imagine an economic model. You look at every area of life, whether it's science, whether it's medicine, whether it's finance, there's some Jew there. Everybody, do some research. Look at anything that's happened in the world. You go to the root of it. There's some Jew there. You could even go back to Christopher Columbus and do a little research on what's going on there. We have, it may be that we all have to be in Israel. It also 100% is that we have a role towards the whole world. And
Well,
please God that it turns out good for us.
it will turn good for us, believe me. Just come back here and see what's going to happen, because when all the Jews are together, things are going to take a major turn. Besides that, amen. Seth Brightman, I had a big pleasure talking to you again, and it was a pleasure. Thank you for your inputs and everything that you said here today. I wish you a great day back in the States. See you soon, Seth, yeah?
Thank you, brother. Thank you, my friend. See you soon.
Take it easy. ביי ביי. צ'או. אהבתם את השיחה עם סת ברייטמן? אז בואו להיפגש איתנו גם מחוץ למסך. חברי מועדון היחידה של ערוץ טוב נהנים מהרצאה חדשה בכל חודש. לחצו על הקישור שמתחת לנגן והצטרפו אלינו. אני עודד ניר, תודה ולהתראות.
שלום חברים, ראיתי מקרוב כיצד מעצמות, טכנולוגיה, כסף ותודעה מעצבים את המציאות הרבה לפני שהיא מגיעה לכותרות. שמי אמיר גלור, ועל בסיס הניסיון העמוק שלי בעולמות הגיאופוליטיקה, חיל אוויר, הון סיכון ו-AI, אסביר את משחק השחמט העולמי. מאבקי המעצמות, הקרב על משאבים, על טכנולוגיה, על מלחמות התודעה והתרחישים שיעצבו את השנים הקרובות. בכדי להבין טוב יותר את הכוחות שפועלים מאחורי הכותרות ומשפיעים על העתיד שלנו, אני מזמין אתכם להרצאה שלי במועדון הגולה בפתח תקווה. נתראה.
בלעדי לחברי מועדון היחידה, סדרת הרצאות עם מיטב המומחים בישראל בנושאים שמעסיקים את כולנו, קהילה, תוכן, עומק, להצטרפות למועדון היחידה ולרכישת כרטיסים להרצאה, לחצו על הקישור שמתחת לנגן.